Welcome to the NWI.com Political Roundtable for Friday, October 14th. We're coming to you a day later than we usually do, and we don't have Doug Ross with us today. Hopefully he'll be back next week.
We're a day late and a Doug short.
Exactly. I'm Robert Blaszkiewicz, Assistant Managing Editor of the Times, here with Mark Kiesling, Times columnist, bringing you the latest developments in the world of politics. And Mark, something you've been really digging into lately is the ongoing investigation involving officers from the Lake County Sheriff's Department who acquired guns and then sold those guns, and it caught the attention of the feds.
Yeah, I guess you can call it nothing short of gun running.
Yeah.
They were using Lake County police stationery to buy machine guns. Two of the three officers who have been indicted thus far, 6 received subpoenas, 3 have been indicted, have what are known as Class 3 federal firearms licenses, which allow them to deal in machine guns.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be a police officer to have a Class 3 FFL. But these two individuals were police officers who had the Class 3 licenses, and they used them to buy the guns and laser sights, which were then sold over the internet. And they ended up in places from Montreal to Mississippi. And in Mississippi, it was particularly tragic because one of the people who purchased the machine gun ended up in a shootout with police. So you had police selling guns to someone who then used it on other police officers. But the development this week, and we've talked about this before, the subject before, but the new development this week is the fact that one of the 6 who received subpoenas and who has been named in the paper, Scott Shellhart, Patrolman Scott Shellhart, will be back on the job on Monday.
Okay.
And so he has apparently been cleared of any type of wrongdoing.
Right. So far, just 3 officers have been actually indicted.
3 have been indicted, including the deputy police chief under former Sheriff Roy Dominguez, Joe Comstar. And the police chief under Sheriff Dominguez is Marco Kiesling, and he is one of the 6 who received subpoenas. And what's significant, I think, about seeing Shellhart go back to work is that you are not seeing Kiesling and Lieutenant Mike Riley, who was a commander under Sheriff Dominguez. You are not seeing either one of those men being reinstated.
Yeah.
Which, you know, it begs the question: what's up with that? Is there an indictment? Is there an indictment in the future for these people? And if so, how far up the totem pole is that going to go?
Well, moving over on the other side of the state line, another different kind of case involving a police officer. We saw on Thursday the attorney for the Linwood police officer, Brian Dorian, who was falsely accused in the bi-state shooting spree of a year ago. His attorney filed suit on Thursday against Will County officials for wrongful arrest.
Well, the Will County officials who charged Dorian initially seem to have, well, they seem to present a fairly reasonable case, but as as it began to unfold, it began to unravel.
Right.
And they were eventually forced to just to drop all charges against him. And you wonder, well, okay, why the rush to judgment? Unfortunately, the reason is politics. It was an election year for James Glasgow, who is the state's attorney in Will County. He was under we call them the bi-state shootings. They were also called the honeybee killing. There was a shooting in Beecher, Illinois, and in Lowell, Indiana, and you saw Glasgow jump and indict Dorian.
Right. Something which didn't happen in Lake County.
which was going to be my point exactly. Lake County was presented with similar information that the man who had shot the person in Beecher had then driven to Lowell and shot a farmer there who was out, you know, he was outstanding in his field, let's say. Now he survived.
Yeah.
But you know, to their credit, I think Sheriff Roy Dominguez and Prosecutor Bernie Carter took a look at the information and said, well, you know, we're just going to need more than this to indict this guy.
Right.
And hindsight's always 20/20, but now it's come back to bite Will County, and I think, you know, I think they're going to end up, you know, making Brian Dorian probably a little wealthier than he was at this time last year.
Well, moving on to wider political issues, there's the issue of jobs and the ongoing unemployment issues in the country. We've seen President Obama in the White House pushing his jobs bill, which this week failed in the Senate. The Senate Republicans used the filibuster to basically block it. And then in turn, Senate Republicans offered their own jobs plan. One of those Republicans co-sponsoring the jobs plan was Indiana's senior Senator Richard Lugar.
I was going to say, you know, we can bring it close to home. With that,
right? Who is facing his own primary battle for re-election. So there's some conflicting views there between Republicans and Democrats on these jobs bill. Democrats want something more immediate. Republicans concerned about the expense of the Democrats' proposals. They want to focus more on deregulation, tax measures,
incentives,
those kinds of things. So and ongoing with all this, we see the growing protest movement, Occupy Wall Street, which began, of course, in New York City, spread to Chicago. We saw our local members of the United Steelworkers join those protests this week, and scheduled for this weekend are protests in both Valparaiso and Gary.
Now, you mentioned Lugar's co-sponsoring of the Republican bill. Talk a little bit, if you would, about the opponent Lugar faces.
He's being challenged on the Republican side by current Indiana State Treasurer Richard Murdoch, who's got the solid backing of the Tea Party activists in the state, and so he's coming at Lugar from the right-hand side and saying Lugar is just too liberal and not conservative enough for the Republican Party.
Because we know it's kind of funny that we talk about protests and the Wall Street protests, but of course the Tea Party gets its name from one of the original protests that helped found the United States.
Yeah, and there's kind of an interesting mirror going on here between the Tea Party and the Occupy protesters. I saw a Venn diagram on the internet, which, you know, a Venn diagram is the two circles which overlap.
And then in the middle there's a common ground.
Right. So in the Occupy circle, you have anger over corporate power. In the Tea Party circle, you have anger over government power, and intersecting, you have anger over corporate money flowing into Washington, funding government power. Exactly. So maybe that's where you have these movements. Maybe there's a build-up to something where it's finally people are fed up with corporate money and government, and we see it in the Senate race where Richard Lugar, the power of incumbency is that constant flow of money that comes into Washington, and he's been able to far outraise his opponent, Richard Murdoch.
Now, you know, one of the criticisms of Lugar, though, now has been, and I don't know how valid this is, but you know, that I believe he's 80 years old now, and there are some people that have said, hey, look, you were elected to the Senate in 1976. It's about time you took a well-deserved vacation and let somebody else, you know, handle it. Now, the question would be, should, regardless of which Republican wins, they're going to face a Democratic opponent.
Correct.
Talk a little bit about him, if you would.
Joe Donnelly, who's the 2nd District Congressman to the east of us, his district actually
South
covers
Bend, yeah.
South Bend. His district actually reaches into eastern Porter County. He is running as a Democrat. He's unopposed. He's pretty much got the. It's pretty much assured almost that he's got the nomination. There's no other Democrat really challenging. So, so he'll be the Democratic candidate, and he's very much a moderate. He's someone who's been very aggressive in gun rights and things like that probably play well in the overall state. So he's someone who, if the Republicans do nominate Richard Murdoch, someone who's perceived as more to the right, Donnelly could play the moderate card and say this guy's an extremist, and really give the Democrats, put that seat in play for the Democrats.
What if Lugar is successful?
Yeah.
Lugar has always been seen as more of a centrist,
Right.
a person who's willing to play ball with the Democrats,
Right.
Instead of take his ball and go home.
Yeah.
What if you have two moderates
Right.
who are up against each other?
Right, and I think Lugar, I think because of people knowing Lugar and comfort with Lugar overall, and his centrism, I think it gives him an advantage. I think that's why Lugar is the better general election candidate for the Republicans than Richard Murdoch is.
Well, it'll be interesting no matter what happens.
Yeah, it will be. And we'll be talking about, obviously, more election news in coming weeks with the local municipal elections coming up. So watch for that. Thanks for watching this week, and we'll be back next week with another political roundtable.
Thank you.